Welcome, TTB community. I am Bob Demena, and here with me, as always, is the very copper-bottomed Elliot Shibley.
Copper bottomed?
Yeah.
Is that like apple bottom? No, I'm just kidding.
No, it essentially means you can be trusted and you're reliable. You're safe and you're reliable. You're sturdy. You're a good partner. That's what I was getting at. I
I
kind of
like that. I've
twisted
never
it.
heard that phrase.
No, yeah. So I don't know if it's really applicable to describing a person per se.
Why not?
But well, exactly. That's why I did it. That's what I did it. But I think it's more about maybe an investment or a deal or a plan that you have. It's a copper bottomed plan. But today we're using it to describe you.
Either way, I'm very appreciative.
You're welcome.
So our guest today is Nikola. Nikola is a professional photographer with a passion for architecture, yachts, food, golf, and fashion. And he currently has 14 books published, from the Komodo National Park to 12 City Guides and his Worlds book of his own art photography. All of them are very cool, and you can check them out on his website, which is in the show notes. And when it comes to photography, Nikola is very attracted to cultures in transition, and we talk about that with him in this episode. And he's been living in Bali for the past 20 years, and he has been able to see the impact of development in that up-and-coming city, which is really cool. And he also has a YouTube channel where he interviews other photographers, choreographers, divers, pro tennis players, musicians, and a whole list of other people that he is really passionate about. And he's got some really interesting conversations on his channel. And he's done a lot of different things in his life, but it was just a wonderful conversation, and we really hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, it was a great conversation. That was... We sort of went off on a tangent, I think, in the
Several
beginning.
tangents.
Yeah, but that's, I think, what made it great. So he was a really fun guy to talk to. Before we get into the podcast, though, very quickly, I just want to run through what we have going on. The travel blueprint tutorials, the video tutorials, are available for purchase. They break down essentially how you can become your own travel agent. Think about it like this. Whatever you're going to pay a travel agent to do, you can learn to do it on your own for $25.
And an hour 15 of your time.
Yeah, it's all the tools that you need to understand how to navigate in a brand new city, to book cheap airfare, to sift through the countless travel blogs and restaurant reviews online, understanding social norms and safety, how to be a thoughtful traveler. We essentially compiled all that information into this video tutorial for you to check out and take a crack at becoming your own travel agent. Save some money this year and do it yourself. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, we offer airline booking services where we just take 20% off of the savings of your flight. So whatever it ends up being, whatever we save you, and we'll determine what the actual price was going to be before we end up going through with the process, but we just take a cut of that. So if you want some significant airline savings and maybe aren't sure exactly how to do it on your own, we can help you do that. Lastly, Travel a Roundtable series. I think if I were to describe this series in one word, I would use the word informative. They're always very informative discussions where we have multiple people with professionals in whatever topic that is that month. We break it down. We get into great group discussions. We bounce ideas off of one another, and they always end up being really good conversations that you can rely on for your own travel planning, whether it's teaching abroad or backpacking or budgeting. Really good conversations there. Lastly, if you want to follow along with our guests and how we release our podcast and when we release them, social media is probably the way to go. Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, we post pictures provided to us by our guests to those feeds. Check those out, comment, like, engage, do whatever it is you want to do there. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Without further introduction, please give it up for our next guest, Nikola.
Welcome to the Traveler's Blueprint. Start designing your next adventure.
Nikola, welcome to the Traveler's Blueprint.
Thank you.
We are very excited to chat with you today. You have been living in Bali for the last 20 years, and I'm really excited to talk to you about what it's like right now during this pandemic. But you grew up in Yugoslavia, then it became Serbia, and you moved around for a little while at a young age, and now you even have a young daughter that has lived in many apartments in the first year of her life. So we're just very excited to talk to you about your well-traveled knowledge. And let's get started by talking about why you moved to Bali at the age of 24.
A pure escapism. Life completely fell apart in probably 3 days. I was a musician there. My band was kind of like getting up in that kind of like how bands get up.
Yeah.
We were super fortunate to know pretty much the biggest band there. They loved us. We opened for them many times. Like I played, I don't know, 3,000 people, 5,000 people. I played the stadium and all that. And I worked in the first independent newspaper. My best friend's father started this newspaper, who will be assassinated 10 years later. And then in 3 days, my band like made an album, and we were kind of like going on a tour and all that. And everything fell apart in 3 days. I lost the job. My band kind of like split up, let's say. I had to move back from my parents' apartment from my apartment to parents' apartment. And that happened in 3 days. And then 6 months of depression that is only known to 24-year-olds. And then decision to move to Bali. My uncle called. I was going back and forth between going to Bali, staying there, and that was the moment where I kind of like was into moving to Bali. I asked him to move to Bali, and I had a ticket and all that, and 3 weeks later I was in Bali. So escapism.
Wow.
That's pretty much what happened.
I want to add context to this for our listeners who may not be familiar with it. The American education system, I don't think, touches up on what happened in Yugoslavia in too much detail, but essentially there was the president or leader of Yugoslavia died, and
80 something, yeah.
And it caused essentially civil war among the different countries. Correct? Is that?
Yeah, it took a while, and then Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia. It was kind of like a weird war where we have like three sides that are shooting at each other. It's something that is horrific. I mean, the experience of it, I didn't really have the experience because I'm from the capital city, and I didn't have the first-hand experience of the war, in like first front lines. But I did go to the army, and I was lucky to escape this thing. I mean, I was actually shifted from one unit to another. The unit that I was in was shifted off to war, and I escaped this thing by being shifted somewhere else. So.
Wow.
And then, I mean, like when I moved in 98, I moved back, and then in 99, Belgrade was bombarded by NATO allies. And so I had to watch that and listen to my mom, kind of like having this conversation of like day one of bombarding, and you're like, hi, how are you? The bombs are coming, and you kind of like click, and you just don't know. I mean,
wow.
I had this experience of my brother who was working for a TV station in Belgrade that the bomb was actually put there, and he wasn't working that night. But many of his friends died and all that. It's a horrific story. I mean, just you don't want to live through that. So,
no, yeah.
But I mean, but basically, I mean, then when you talk about this war. To people in Belgrade, it was like the best time ever. The clubs were working from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. So you were partying from 7 a.m. to 11. Then you go home, sleep, and then you kind of like whoever got adjusted was barbecuing 6 o'clock, watching the fireworks. So that is the experience, like a lot of weed, a lot of like
wow.
everything, like it just was just kind of like a free fall. So it's like a weird experience. That when you listen to it, it sounds horrific, and it was very horrific. But when you actually talk to people in Serbia, they're like, like it was awesome.
Yeah, that's interesting. So my wife and I actually recently watched a documentary about this family in West Virginia, and they talked about this concept called fatalism. And a lot of West Virginians work in coal mines, and they're prone to accidents. You typically die early if you don't die in an accident because of black lung disease. So a lot of these families adopt this fatalistic mentality where they live every day as if it's their last. and they don't really care what happens tomorrow as long as they're having fun today. So that kind of reminds me of how people, based on your story, acted during the civil strife. It was just kind of like, we're going to enjoy our time as best as we can while we're alive.
A lot of black humor and escapism, but really, like, it just rips into your soul. It doesn't leave, whether you like to admit it or not. I mean, like, it's just a stressful time for sure.
Yeah. How couldn't it be?
I haven't lived. I really haven't. I actually lived it. I think that like kind of like almost like players. Like, I mean, if you play a game, it's one thing, but if you're sitting on the bench, which I kind of was, it's even more stressful. So it's like, I don't know, like it's what happens. So that's it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. All right, well, let's not turn this into a war podcast. So, all right, now you're in Bali, and did you have a passion for photography before you went to Bali, or did you develop it while you were there?
No, I took maybe 3 photographs before Bali, and I have to thank my uncle actually who brought me to Bali for this type of thing. He had a jewelry business. He handed me a camera and he said, we need photographs of jewelry, which is difficult to do when you're starting with this. And then it took me what was a week to find the freaking on button. And then he was a hard ass, so he was just whatever I was doing for like probably a month was like no. I was sitting one day, the light hit this piece of jewelry. I took the photo and that was it. I mean, I was done. This is what I was doing. It took me a little bit, maybe a year or something, to kind of like, or 2 actually, to fully commit to this. But then when I committed, it was mixture of hunger and then ending up in this, working for big hotels, photographing yachts, doing, restaurants. Just a whole array of things happen in these 18 years, really. So like I said, from hunger to staying in 5-star hotels, red carpet pulled up, for you to come in and take the photos. So
wow. So you're like a digital nomad working the streets before it was really that even popular.
No, I was a photographer. I mean, like, it was not a digital nomad. It was like all of my jobs were in Bali. So the Bali, I mean, me and Bali were kind of like coming up at the same time. There was not too much competition. So it's kind of like pretty much like a Hollywood actor. Can you ride a horse? Oh, of course. Can you do this? Oh, of course. Even though you can't. And then you kind of like over the years, you develop these things, because as a photographer, it's a catch-22, without a portfolio you're not working, but without the work you don't have a portfolio. So you have to somehow build it. And for me, it was kind of like this, I just slotted into this thing where there was not a lot of competition and Bali was booming. So I was just kind of like propelled from one job to another. That's pretty much how it happened. A lot of luck. I mean, a lot of luck. My whole life is just luck.
Luck, opportunity, and ambition.
I mean, I wouldn't look. I mean, it is luck. I mean, like ambition. I mean, I didn't advertise. I didn't talk to people what I do. It was word of mouth, and like I was jumping from one place to another, and then over the 18 years, you build something, and you look back, and like seriously, it was just luck.
Well, I will say you do have skill.
My ability. There's my ability. It's undeniable. But it took me probably 10 years to admit to myself that I have the ability. Like, I mean, now when people tell me like, "Fuck, you're so good," I just, to fuck with them, I say, I know. Because I mean, before I was kind of like, I was just kind of like, yeah, okay. I mean, now I can like, I know, it's fine. I mean, like, I know I'm good, So it's.
You're very good. Your portfolio is incredible.
It took a while to get to this place of being comfortable. So it's a long game.
So while we're on the topic of your photography, something that stood out to me was
in the bio you sent to us, you said, when it comes to art photography, I am attracted to cultures in transition. What does that mean?
Well, a lot of people will judge the modern world interfering into certain cultures. You know, like it happened in the States, it happened in Australia, and we're thinking, oh my God, like Native Americans and Aborigines and all that stuff. However, I mean, there are pluses and minuses to this, let's say, Western type of living, and it's infiltrating everywhere. So while I was judging everything, like, oh my God, tourists, this, that, blah, blah, blah. But then you realize, I mean, like, there are pluses and also minuses to more comfortable life. So all of these cultures that you are seeing around the world, you know, if you go to Africa, if you go here, if you go there, I mean, just the fact that you have internet and the ability to talk to you guys, for example.
Yeah.
That is happening all around the world. So that is a plus. There are minuses to mass tourism. There like I saw Bali kind of being swallowed by the mass tourism. But I no longer want to judge this thing. I mean, like, because we're so precious about our time on this planet. Because look, people here through 3,000. They're just not gonna care. Like, it was 2000, who cares? Our life is really special to us, but you know, we're not that special. It's just not.
We're a tiny little blip.
Well, do you really care about the guy from 1500s? No.
Right.
I mean, no. You know, it's an interesting story, but this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about transition. It is transitional, and of course, we need. I would like for people who travel to be aware of this, you know, like how to travel. What are you actually doing when you are infiltrating cultures that they have not seen this advancement of the things? Because I find the people who are the poorest, who are with no means to be the best people, the most open. Once you have stuff, you're kind of like looking at the angle of the people who are coming at you. So cultures and transitions are exactly that. They're transitioning into something. Nepal in year 3000 is not going to be Nepal today. Burma in 3000 is not going to be this. So it's just, you know, like, you know, internet is like, but that is what I mean. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm trying not to judge this infiltration.
I think that's noble. So one of the countries that Bob and I have been interested in for a very long time since we've started doing the podcast, and for me even in undergrad, was Bhutan. And learning about Bhutan and I think it was until 1998 or 99 that they didn't allow television in their country. And it wasn't until the early 2000s that they allowed the first outside tourists into their country. So they had been prolonging this westernization, this modernization for a very long time. And now I think they're slowly allowing it to come in. And they have a very strict limit on how many outside tourists can, or I guess any tourist is from the outside, how many of them can come in each year.
It's extremely high cost, and also Bhutan is the only country that is measuring the happiness of their own people. So
yeah, above GDP.
It's kind of interesting. I mean, it's one of the places that I want to go to, but I don't know. I mean, I'm removing myself from judgment, from anything. Like, you know, I mean, two backpackers, you know, like two backpackers talking about, look, man, I spend $5 a day, and yeah, everything was included, and all these things, blah blah blah, and just, there's a pride there. And then the other guy goes like, wow, you paid so much money, like I can do it for 2.5. And then you have this thing on the other side. I spend $150,000 a day, and I can spend more. So like the judgment of anything, you don't know anybody's story. You don't know how they got there.
Mm-hmm.
Just get rid of that. go to sleep, you know how you feel. It has nothing to do with anybody else's life whatsoever.
So do you think your
That's how I
photography is more of an observation than a judgment, and you're wanting to share that observation with others?
100%. I mean, I can't judge. Like literally, you don't know who you're standing in front of. You're just kind of like you're taking these images that are almost like symbols, but you don't know anybody's story really unless you meet them, get to know them, all that. And even then, like you don't know what happened like when they were 10. That's why they reacted to a certain thing. So it's just removing judgment as much as you can is I think it's a happier life.
I would very much agree with that. I think that's wise, very wise.
I would agree with it too. Yeah,
I know.
Do you have any specific stories you could share with us of people you photographed that really influenced this thought process that you just explained to us?
Well, I mean, maybe not like specific people. There are things that you photograph. I mean, what is very interesting to me is that I work really, really fast. I'm not one of those photographers who kind of like, I waited for this photograph for 17 hours, blah, blah. I work really fast. I find that kind of, I don't know, there's some comfort there of fast moving. But what is really interesting for me is what people will project when they look at your photo. Because, I mean, essentially, I would take this photo, it will mean something to me or not. There are a couple of photos that mean a lot to me because of the advancement in photography or advancement in the way that I'm looking at the world. But what is really interesting to me is how people, when they're in front of your photos, describe these photographs. Because some of the descriptions have lasted for half an hour. And I'm like, whatever you took, man, I want that thing. I mean, it is incredible, the projection on the photograph, on a certain feeling of the people that see this photograph and just react to it for whatever reason. Like there are many photographs. Like I mean, the little girl that I photographed when I sold my first photograph, it was a Balinese kid, and then I literally gone for kids because, well, I made some money. And for 2 months, I was trying to get these photographs of kids and all that. Nothing worked. And then I had this little girl who literally was photographing me with her eyes. I mean, wherever I went, she was kind of following me. And I got the most amazing photographs of her. That moment changed everything because I was in the moment. I was present. I was not looking for something. I was living, like it wasn't like, it just, when you don't have any money, you're hungry and you make some money, you're thinking, I'm going to do this again. I mean, but it doesn't happen that way. It's just, you have to something has to happen. Some sort of, out of the sky thing happens when you take that good photo. And that was the thing with this girl. It was just like completely living, completely forgetting everything. It was just me and her. I was photographing her, and that was like one of the most successful photographs that I ever took in my life. That happened, I don't know, 15 years ago. And then that soul followed me. I photographed this girl in Bali. That soul followed me. I believe in Burma. I saw the same girl. It was the same type of connection. Then I went to Burma, for India. It's just that same little girl is there in a different body. So it is really like kind of like a out of body experience for me. So once you transcend into that, and once you understand that there is no cheating here, it's like honesty about your process has to be there. Otherwise, it's just not gonna work, man. It's just
wow,
not happening.
That's a really interesting perspective. So I'm not. My photography is much. My thought process behind my photography is much different. It's not nearly as spiritual, and I've never really felt that connection. But something that I'm learning over the past maybe a year or so. I was always the type of guy to never understand art or photography. Like, I could appreciate what I saw, but when art pieces sold for a significant amount of money, I'd be like, yeah, I don't get it. And it's not until recently that I did start to understand what makes a piece of art valuable. And a lot of it comes down to how you perceive that art and the story behind the picture, right? Or the story behind the painting. And when you understand the story, just as you told it to us, the experience you had, it adds value to it because you can appreciate it. It's really interesting. I followed this guy who had to live through the Holocaust, and he was a painter. He was a Jewish painter before the Holocaust, and then he made it to the United States, and he continued to paint. And obviously, after those experiences, his work changed significantly because,
It changes you.
Yeah, and so I kind of wanted one of his pieces of art, and it's not because of what he actually physically paints. It's because you can look at that painting and, knowing his story, sort of interpret his emotion and how he meant to make that piece of art. I don't know. It's really, and this is all brand new to me, and so it's really exciting to now look at art in this new way. And so I went through your Instagram page and I saw all these portraits of men and women in, I guess, the Asian countries and African countries. And I'm looking at them, and now I'm just curious about the story and their story, your story, how you came to photograph them, the emotion behind the eyes, and more about the culture. It's just, if you have the right mindset, you can be very inquisitive with these paintings and pictures, and it's not just what you see, it's how you perceive it, and it can really spark the imagination, and I think that's what's appealing now.
What is actually very interesting, because I think that you hit the really good point there. I have photographed so far only symbols. I haven't followed a story. I literally, like, all of my photos are symbols. When you look at Sebastião Salgado, my photography is a joke. Because this guy went purposely for 10 years. I cannot leave my daughter. Fuck that. No. This guy left his family for 10 years. He was traveling. He almost lost his life, started pissing blood. All of that changed the world. So I really am nothing. However, I have realized that I'm nothing. And that gives me a certain amount of freedom, because I realize that I haven't followed really a story. I photographed symbols, and the fact that I just have this eye, I just happen to have this thing, gives me the ability to be as good as Macari or Salgado, blah, blah, but there's no story here. The story kind of is being built now, really. And I don't know what is the next story, because the stories are the only thing that is important. When you're saying that art, you don't look, art galleries are money laundering places, and I found that out going through 14 countries, photographing all these books and all of that, and I went through probably 400 galleries around the world. When you look at the art there, I want to stab somebody in the eye, how this looks like. I don't know anybody who is kind of going, oh my God, the art world is amazing. No, it's money laundering thing. You can sell something for ungodly amount of money, but I don't give, I hate this person. I actually I had this idea to challenge, that's why I took up jiu-jitsu. I wanted to challenge the artists to fight me, because what they are projecting to the world is bullshit. It's absolute crap. 90% of the gallery stuff is absolute money laundering. There's no doubt about that. Nobody will buy this. Nobody will want this on the walls and all that. However, art lives and dies by the viewer. If you like it, you just like it. That's it. It's over. You can stand in front of Mona Lisa, Van Gogh, blah, blah, blah. If you don't like it, you just don't like it. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just shitty for you.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a story, there's a massive story, but I mean, like, art really lives and dies with the viewer. As an artist, you have, especially photographer, you have a pleasure of taking the photo, taking it to a computer, working on it, and then once you release it in the world, your job is done. Your pleasure is finished. That's it. It's only yours for the up until the moment you release it into the world. Once you release it into the world, it's no longer yours. You better be sure that what you're releasing to the world, you're stand behind it. Because, I mean, like, if you release it and somebody says, it's not good, and you're like, oh my God, it's not good, you're done. If you're listening to the world, there's no happiness there. And, of course, there are people who are very, very good. Like, some advices, some things that, like the constructive criticism, man, I mean, like, it changed my life for sure.
Yeah.
But it's very rare.
I want to jump
very
back. When you talk about the art galleries, I understand that art galleries I've been into a few, and they always seem very high priced. But my impression is that art galleries are, I guess, the artist pays to be in an art gallery, and that's how they get their art, I guess, known and out in the world. And what do you mean when you say that art galleries are money laundering?
Well, I mean, you can put whatever thing and you can sell it for whatever money that you want. The thing is, you have to put the money behind a certain artist and you have to market them, and then they become whatever they become. It just, like, you just need to pick somebody and put a massive amount of effort behind the artist. But what I mean by money laundering, go to art galleries. I mean, I've been, and 90% of the art in those art galleries, I mean, my daughter can do that. Like, literally, my daughter can do it is sad. It is just, it is ridiculous. It's full of, the people who are like, oh my God, like, don't talk to me. I'm 23. I finished school. It is ridiculous. It is those are ridiculous places.
So you think they're faking it? Is that what? Like, do you get a sense that they're not?
Look, I mean, I'm not definitive in this thing. I mean, obviously there are places that are legit and all that. Of course,
right.
There are no absolutes, but I think 80% of them are absolute bullshit.
There's actually a really good.
Bullshit.
I don't know if you watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but there's a great episode where they play into this entire subject, and they do it really, really well. I think it's called like Ungo Goblogian, and Danny DeVito pretends to be an art producer. They use a guy
a curator.
They use Charlie, who has this horrible story, as like the artist. It's a great interpretation of this entire culture.
Look, man, I mean, I've been in a gallery and there was a photograph of a living room, right? And one photo is completely black, and another photo is a photo of the living room. And essentially, it says the artist wanted to prove that the room looks very different when it's dark and when there's light in it. Get the fuck! I mean, like, what are you talking about? I mean, are you? I mean, I just want to jump. Like, I want to put this artist to sleep. Like, just like, what are we talking about here?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a place that is 200 square meters with a pair of boots in the middle. I mean, seriously, you deserve to die. I mean, just deserve to die.
What do you think about the monoliths that have been found recently? There's one in Utah, and then there have been two others found, and they're by unknown artists, and they're just these silver-looking things that are about 8 feet tall in random locations.
I don't know about that, but I do believe that the history will be rewritten. I love Graham Hancock. I love Randall Carson.
I'm familiar with both of them.
It's just they're incredible, and I don't believe that the Egyptians built the pyramids, but that's neither here or there.
Well, this
It's
podcast.
very, very interesting.
We're going on a lot of different tangents here, but I guess that's fine. Yeah, but the Graham Hancock thing is interesting. He has evidence of water erosion that is inconsistent with what we believe currently. So, like the type of water erosion on the pyramids is not consistent with the age that we think the structure actually is. So that's really interesting. And then there's the lightning. There's lightning impacts that appear to be older than what we think they are. But in the Americas this year, in 2020, we discovered a cave. I forget where it is, but it...
Oh, yeah, in Peru, or it may have been Brazil.
And within that cave is evidence to suggest people migrated to the Americas 15,000 years older than we thought. So 30,000 years ago, we now have evidence to suggest that people migrated to this country. Up until the discovery of this cave this year, we thought people migrated here 15,000 years ago. So that added an additional 15,000 years to what we thought.
I'm looking forward to the day when America will be the place of absolute culture, because I do believe that this European thing of like they're 400 years old. I think that I'm really looking forward to. I mean, look, Europe is already done. I mean, like, it's just taken over by everybody. Europe does not matter at all. But culturally, right now, it's one of the best things that we have. So I just don't. I mean, America took over like the last 100 years. All of the culture is coming from there, whether you like to admit it or not. Music, movies, all of it is coming from the States. It just happened to be 100 years old, but we're all living it. We all know what is happening. We all follow, like the ridiculously interesting elections lately. Do you know? Are you following like any elections anywhere around the world? No. We're all following. Well, why would you? I mean, it's not interesting. I don't care. So what I'm saying is that America has this kind of like thing, and I always liked it. I always kind of like gravitated, and I do live that life. I do live a rock and roll life. So, come on, let's admit it. It's the best possible country in the world. It's the only country in the world actually that gets to live the multicultural life. You have white people, black people, Chinese, Indian, blah blah blah. Like I didn't see any black people in Serbia. How many are there in Russia? How many? You know what I mean? It's like it's a very interesting thing, and the lunacy of what is happening in States right now is just interesting. It's entertainment. I mean, really, it's serious for people. But it is entertainment for me. I don't give a fuck. I mean, do I care about what is happening in America? No. I know you do, but I kind of like look at it as entertainment.
I understand what you're saying. And America is incredibly. It is very interesting culturally. It is an unbelievable country to be a part of. But something that I have this conversation often with people who are dissatisfied with the Trump. We're dissatisfied with the Trump administration and the culture surrounding that following, and as a result, had some sort of dislike towards the United States and didn't want to represent an American flag, and kind of had this sort of disconnect from what it is to be an American. And I would talk to them and I would try to remind them that you can be dissatisfied with an administration in a particular period of time, but don't forget what American culture actually is. It's very deep, and it is, just like you said, the art and the music and the food and the people and this conglomeration of global subcultures all thrown into one country, and we're making it work. And although we have a multitude of issues when it comes to how we handle certain cultures and minority cultures, and we still have a long way to go, we actually are one of the most progressive countries in the world, even with an American defined conservative culture, a Trump-like culture. Even with that culture existing in the United States, we're still one of the most progressive countries in the world. The fact that we even discuss issues associated with minorities is a testament to how progressive we are. And so I think people kind of forget that. And it's very interesting to hear your take on our culture.
Yes, it is. That was well said, Bob.
We're all living it. We're all living this culture. And plus, I mean, look, America for me really does not exist. You are just a mixture of all of the fucking country. There's like all of it is there. Like you have people from Zanzibar, you have people from Australia, you have people from India, you have people from Pakistan, Africa, this, that. It's just this is the kind of like a testing ground for the world. Yeah. America is.
We don't know if it's going to work out yet.
Well, I mean, no. I mean, obviously not, because I mean, like everybody are carrying their own ridiculous baggage, and we're all pretty much the same. I mean, have you ever met anybody who has traveled extensively and said the world is a horrible place, people are terrible, it's very dangerous? No. Everybody who are traveling are saying the same thing. It is much safer than you think. It is much easier than you think, and people are super nice. Yes, there are extremes, but they're at 3%. So and of those 3%, there are 2% of the stupid people who go to places that are kind of like, do not go there.
Yes, they're just looking for trouble.
Don't go there. I mean, it's like, So have you met anybody who is saying that the world is bad, who traveled? I haven't.
No.
It's interesting. We've had this conversation on we have a new segment called the Traveler Roundtable, and we did a cultural appropriation episode that'll be coming out in a bit. And we talk about this subject in particular, about the globalized mixing of cultures and where we'll be in, 500 years if, climate change hasn't completely decimated us. And I think America is a good starting point of what the entire world will look like at some point, where we're just all mixed. Because, I mean, someone coming from India to America or Zanzibar to America in 300 years, that family that came from Zanzibar or India to America is no longer considered someone from Zanzibar or India. I mean, as now, like, I'm not considered a German, even though my heritage is German. I'm American. And we are going to have so many different colors in America, and they're all going to be American.
Yes.
And it'll be still a mixed bag of cultures, but it'll be the American culture as the mixed bag.
Yeah.
I just had that conversation tonight. We are really, really precious about our lifetime. It does not matter. I mean, what matters is how you are with people and all of that. That matters. Right now, you're going to die, and then it's going to be like 3,000.
Right now?
Year 3,000.
No.
That's it. I mean, it's going to be year 3,000, and really, you're just going to be a speck of history.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it.
So I want to transition back into travel, since this is a travel podcast. But the last question I had on art was, are you familiar with The Comedian, the art piece? It is literally a banana duct taped to a wall.
Yes, I am very familiar because I did a podcast with the guy who used it. Actually, he is making tennis rackets, and this banana was sold for about, $1 million, and he is making tennis frames. So he duct taped the banana, and next to it is the tennis racket, which is lasting forever. And he's going like, well, if this sold for $1 million, how much is my racket? It just goes forever.
Yeah, 120,000. That's what it sold for.
120,000, right?
Yep.
I'm very familiar with that thing. I think it's kind of like Jackson Pollock. Like if you're a brilliant businessman,
you can sell anything.
Good on you. I mean, they're businessmen. I mean, they're amazing, but. No, I wouldn't be looking at that piece of shit. Just no. Sorry, but like that. Sorry, no.
All right. Well, when you and I spoke a few weeks ago prior to the podcast, and I remember one of the things you talked about was that you have a young daughter right now, and you said that she has moved with you to upwards of 30 different apartments in the first 18 months of her life.
Yeah, it was intense.
And was that all within Bali, or is that in different countries in the
No,
southeast?
different countries. Different
Okay.
countries. She was born in Portugal, and then from Portugal she was kind of like constantly going to Russia, and then she went to Serbia, and then to Indonesia. This is before she was one. Indonesia. Then she came back to Portugal, changed God knows how many apartments. No, in Greece, changed a lot of apartments in Greece. A lot of trips to again Serbia, Holland. It was just a lot. It was just too much.
How old is she now?
Almost 4.
Almost 4. Okay.
Yeah.
What was that like moving around with her? Because we've talked to a few families that have had young children travel with them and move around with them, but I don't think anything to the extent that you've done.
Super easy. I mean, like the when they're babies, you're just taking care of the football that cries and poops.
Yeah.
So you just kind of like move her around. It's not a problem at all. The experience in the plane is super interesting because before I had my daughter, like you know how you look at the people with their child that is crying. It's like you're ruining my trip.
Yes.
Now I'm kind of like spiking her to cry and to ruin people's lives because I get a weird pleasure out of it. So
Remind me not
yeah.
to take a flight with you.
No. I mean, like I'm the worst. I mean, I just want her to do this, like complete meltdowns. I'm just kind of like completely into it. It's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. Yeah, just cry more. So it's kind of like I don't know, but I mean, she's a super nice traveler. I mean, like she never had any kind of meltdowns. I mean, she's super chilled traveler. So yeah. No
Have you
problems.
traveled with her recently? I know it's been almost 9 months now since the pandemic started, but
No, we were in Holland. My sister was doing she's a modern dance choreographer, so I was doing photos for her. And then we came. We were in Serbia for 3 days. That was crazy, man. I mean, like that trip was insane because we stayed in Serbia for 3 days. Alexa, my daughter, had 3 months on her passport, so meaning that we had to change the passport. And we came into Serbia. My wife is Russian, so that night when we arrived, that night Serbia shut down. So meaning that if she came the next day, she wouldn't be able to come in. My wife. Then the next day we did the passport for Alexa in one day, which was kind of like heavy connections and all that.
whoa.
That night they closed all the governmental stuff. So basically the next day we would not be able to do this. And then the next day we traveled to Bali and Bali shut down 3 days later.
Wow.
So we were just, I mean, so we've been here for, I think, yeah, since the start, March, I think, April,
Yeah.
February, March. So
What's it been like there? We talked about that in the very, very beginning, but I am really curious to see what Bali's been like throughout this pandemic without all the tourists and it basically just being a handbag of expatriates and locals.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, it's been really, really good because I mean, I wasn't paying attention to pandemic. I was just working. I was kind of like reinventing myself and trying to do stuff, and I was really paying close attention to what is happening because we have a nice house, pool, I can go out, all of that stuff. I was in Europe experiencing these things, and I cannot really talk to my friends and tell them really what is it like because I mean I will not have friends
Because it's too good, right?
Yeah, it's really kind of easy ride. But that being said, Bali is decimated by this. People lost their businesses. People lost their just everything. Going around certain areas in Bali, which was really kind of really busy and stuff like that. There's like 70% of the shops are on for rent. businesses that were been there. I was on the openings of many of these shops. They're out of business. So for a lot of people, it has been just I don't know. I really don't know what are they going to do, what is happening. But for like the whole world, really, it's just it's been a horrible thing.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just I mean, for me personally, I can't complain. I mean, if I would say one word, I can't complain.
Yeah. And I think my wife and I think Bob, you and I have talked about this as well. I think we're very fortunate, a few of the very fortunate people to have weathered this pandemic. But absolutely, the tourist destinations of the world have hurt the most, I think, from this pandemic. But as a photographer, it seems like some of the best photos are when you have the right time and place. And have you found opportunity in this pandemic to photograph the different aspects of life in Bali now that it's changed?
I haven't taken a photograph that means anything to me in the last 3 years.
Okay.
Not even a little bit. I'm not interested in documenting this at all.
Why
for
not?
some reason. Bali is not the place of let's say passion to photograph, because I've been here for too long. I know everything. It's not the place of passion to photograph. I am living here, and I understand that how crazy that sounds, but I'm looking for something else. I'm looking for something that is beyond this pandemic and all that. And I think that the first place that I'm going to go to, I'm planning this right now, is Mentawai, and photograph their tribes. I just don't. Yeah,
So-
I can't do it.
So, do you use photography to learn about a culture? And if you do, use photography to sort of understand the people in the culture, like what is it that you then want to portray with your photographs?
Interesting question. I'm looking for connection. I'm looking for that 5:30 in the morning, walking around the city and just taking it in. I'm not looking for, as I was saying, like symbols. I'm looking for this moments that cannot really be described or transcribed into something that is tangible for other people to see. I'm looking for waking up in Nepal and going out in the streets, sitting down 6 o'clock, having chai with the locals. That is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the personal connections to the people. That is what I'm really looking for. That is the best
I understand.
part.
To me, it sort of sounds like you want to live this parallel to vagabonding, or not backpacking per se, but this travel style that people use to immerse themselves in the culture. They want to live the day to day. They want to experience the relationships authentically with the people who run the shops. And instead of going to the resort, they want to get to know the guy who takes the trash out and what his life is like. I don't know if that's a accurate.
It is. It is. I mean, look, my life has been nothing but luxury for the last couple of years. Really. I mean, stayed in all this, but I just that part of knowing that guy is important to me, and I'm kind of like looking to go back into that, because my life has been really a lot of luxury stuff in the last couple of years, and that is amazing. I mean, it's really really cool, but I think that the balance is something that we're all looking for. Really, is that balance of having this and that, and not be judgmental about this or that, because I know both. I know that I grew up with like every single person who has some money, is not decent and they stole something. That is how I grew up, which is absolutely not true. It's just 100% not true.
Right.
This is the culture that I'm coming from, and this is a baggage that I'm kind of carrying. So it's not true. I have met people who work hard and did stuff, but I came up from communism, where, if you have something, you're bad. So it's this. So the balance is really, really important. I mean, like in everything, I feel, if you kind of like leave this world of backpacking and go into luxury world and kind of like look down at the backpacking world, you're crazy. If you're a backpacker looking at the people who are spending $100,000 a day as like, oh my God, they're evil, well, you're just stupid because you don't know how they got there. You literally don't know how they got there. So, and you kind of want it.
Yeah.
You're sharing a bed with 17 people. You would like a bed for you. I mean, like, don't lie. So it's like this balance of stuff. But I mean, having both worlds is that balance, I feel.
Nikola, I'm going to ask something, and I hope it's not too off base, but you talk a lot about not judging people and not being judgmental, but you are very judgmental on certain art galleries.
100%. They deserve it.
Is that the only thing? Is that the okay thing to be judgmental on?
Oh no, I'm super judgmental. I'm just kind of like trying to be like this, like not judgmental guy. Look, everybody will judge. Let's be honest. I mean, like, come on. There's no perfection here. Perfection is not available. I mean, but striving to not, judge is a good thing. I mean, striving and having that somewhere in the back of your mind, because you don't know how they got there. Because I mean, okay, I was quick to judge all of these things, but that guy who plastered the banana, I mean, like, there might be a great story to it. I mean, all of that. A lot of artists who got there 20 years later. That is also a thing. So there are outliers in everything, but just having that in the back of your mind is good enough to start with. You're gonna judge forever.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's human nature. I mean, I think we judge before we do anything else, and
100%.
it is our evolved minds that actually help us stop the judgment and recognize it as judgment.
Absolutely. Yeah. One thing that I want to touch up on that before we come to a close, and we're kind of getting there, I just want to discuss your 12 city guide and the book that you did. Can you just take us through the travels involved with that and essentially what the finished product is like?
Yeah, I mean,
what was this project? What was this project?
The thing was that I was in Bali for 18 years. My wife was in Bali for 12. So we came to kind of like a close of Bali life. We were thinking that we're going to kind of like take off somewhere else and find a better place. We decided to to open up a publishing house and go and travel and do these books. So the travel guides were really connected to privately owned places. And look, I mean, if you're going to Rome, I don't need to tell you, like there's a Colosseum there. It's just, if you're going to Paris, yeah, sure, you're going to see the Eiffel Tower. So our guides were kind of like, let's go to the cities and find these little places and alleys and all that. So this is what these books were about. It took off from, I think, Vietnam. Rome was the first book. And then we came back to Bali and did... my visa for Australia was kind of like delayed, so we were kind of like, we gotta get out of here. We did a book about Vietnam, got the visa for Australia, did Melbourne and Sydney. Then went to Buenos Aires, did the Buenos Aires book, and then it kind of like took off crazy. Hong Kong and I don't know, Moscow, St. Pete.
And there's 12 of them, correct?
Yes, there's 12 of them. Yes.
And so they're off the beaten path information. Is that an accurate description?
It's cities, so nothing is off the beaten path. I mean, like really, it's just like, off the beaten path is only underwater.
That's true.
I mean, it's like only you can kid yourself. I mean, like it's just
Off the beaten path for tourists.
100%. I mean, this off the beaten path is just ridiculous because I mean, I've been off the beaten path. Like, look, I mean, that story that I was telling you about, like when we were diving off the coast of Flores, 15 nautical miles, and kind of decompressing after a dive in front of active volcano, and volcano exploded, and you're decompressing, and
Who did you tell this to? You didn't tell us this story.
No?
No.
Okay, so, right? Okay, so I will tell you the story. So the story is this: there's the place is called Comba volcano. It is 15 nautical miles north to Flores. It is the active volcano.
Are you saying where?
Flores in Indonesia.
Okay.
It's kind of like you have Bali, Komodo. Komodo is in Flores, and then off to Alor is the next chain of islands.
Okay.
So essentially, it is 15 nautical miles north of Flores. There's a volcano that explodes every 20 minutes.
Oh.
We kind of took our boat to this place, and essentially maybe 10 miles before you see the volcano, you're seeing a little volcano and these little farts that are kind of like every 15 minutes.
Volcano
so you're
fart.
You're approaching this volcano, and then we parked, let's say, I don't know, 200 feet from the volcano, and then it explodes, and you're looking at it like right there. And then a friend of mine and myself went down diving underneath it, and we took this dive, and it was amazing and all of that. And then we were decompressing at probably 3-4 meters, and you're looking up, and it explodes again. So now you're looking at this mushroom cloud just kind of like forming, and you're like, okay, I should die now because my life is never gonna be better, ever. And then we came out, we had a lunch and all of that, decided to go on the speedboat and have a couple of bottles of wine, watching this thing. It exploded again. And then my wife decided that she wanted to hug the volcano, which after a couple of bottles of wine sounded like a great idea. She stepped on the island, hugged the volcano, came back. Weather shifted completely. I mean, it was just kind of like from this beautiful ice glass water to waves. We somehow got on the boat. The boat starts to kind of like, we're trying to get out of there, and we realized that our anchor is just, it's not going. So dive master jumps into the water, goes to what we'll find out later was like about, 80 meters. Which is 200 and something feet.
Yeah.
He releases this thing, and you're kind of like constantly kind of like trying to get this anchor up, and it's like, and then all of a sudden, but to get back from 80 meters is an hour. So we're waiting for him, and we're waiting, and it's just the water is just exploding around us. This volcano is exploding. We're just, oh my God.
What's the name of this volcano?
Comba.
All right, I'm going to find it.
Kombo. And then he comes back, and then American culture. We put Pulp Fiction soundtrack on, we press play, and nobody spoke for until next morning. It was just like one of the best days of my life.
Wow.
The very next day, we were diving with Hammerhead Sharks. So surrounding us and all that.
Yeah, we're gonna come.
Crazy.
We're gonna come.
Yeah, you should.
I need some danger in my life. It's getting too cushy.
Bob, you hate sharks,
Yeah, I do hate sharks.
and I don't think they were in a cage.
They were pretty. That was amazing. I mean, like that dive was incredible. I mean, I dove a couple of times with them, but that dive was crazy because we went down. I was with this friend of mine who's diving in Mexico in the caves. Almost he lost his line, and he had like left or right. Like left is death and right is maybe life. He chose correctly, and he's telling me the story where he almost dies. Like it's a really kind of like, I mean, he's telling me the story and I'm like biting my nails and all of that. And then right after that story, I tell him, man, I dove with hammerheads, and he's like, damn it, I never dove with hammerheads. And I promise him, you're gonna see one with me. And that happened the next day after this combo exploded. We went on a dive, we went down murky water, all that, and all of a sudden they're there, and then one of them starts circling us, and you're just seeing this flash around you, just going around you.
And they're massive. They get to be 20 feet, and they're one of the only sharks that swim in schools, right? Or not? I shouldn't say one of the only.
They're massive schools. I mean, like 300. I had a couple of buddies of mine who were in the waters with them when there are like 300 of them above you. It's incredible.
Crazy.
It's all happening here in Indonesia, so it's incredible.
Yeah.
That is something I really want to do. I've always wanted to dive with sharks, probably in a cage first, and then open water.
No, the cage is only for great whites, man. I mean, like the hammerheads are, well, I mean, they can be dangerous, but yeah.
Just
but,
don't bleed.
Like this. Well, yeah. I mean, black tips and all that. That's just. I mean, when I'm listening to the Hollywood stars, you know, kind of like, wow, we go with sharks, and you kind of like realize it's a black tip shark. There's like a tuna, really.
Yeah, I've done black tip as well. I was in Thailand scuba diving, or snorkeling, and there was a bunch of black tips. They're apparently very harmless.
Yeah,
well,
that's
very, very harmless. A way to describe it.
to humans.
Yeah.
Nikola, in light of recent events that are occurring in Indonesia with the proposition to ban all alcohol, I just want to touch on this really quick. Have you heard of this? What are your thoughts?
Never gonna happen. There's no way. I mean, look, 10 years ago they were talking about banning girls in the bikinis. So no, that's not gonna happen.
Okay,
it's just not gonna happen. I mean, they should legalize weed. That's what
I think. That's going the other way.
I know it is, but this is the country that really I think it's never gonna happen. Look, I mean, this country is a little bit. It's strict, you know. Like, I mean, the alcohol is also super expensive here. I mean, the bottle of wine is like $25, you know, so it's ridiculous.
A lot of that stems from the Muslim culture that is prevalent in Indonesia, right?
It's predominantly Muslim culture. Bali is the only place in Indonesia that is predominantly Hindu.
Okay.
But look, I mean, it's just it is what it is. There are pluses and minuses, and like in every culture. And I don't think that the alcohol ban is ever going to happen.
Okay.
That's not possible.
All right. We got it from firsthand.
Yeah.
Someone living in Bali.
So, who will ever come here?
We are winding down, and we are going to do our rapid fire round, where we're going to ask you 12 questions in rapid succession. But before we do, I want to give you the opportunity to give us your social media, your websites, whatever it is you want to share, wherever it is you want to direct our listeners to check out your content.
Sure. My Instagram is Nikola Kostic _ Prince, Nikola Kostic _ Prince. Another thing is Bali art prints, and my YouTube channel is Nikola Kostic. I interviewed a couple of really interesting people, like underwater photographers, Formula One photographers, really interesting photographer. Just there are a couple of interesting people there.
Yeah, I checked that out.
And-
I saw that you interviewed Trevor Cole. He's someone that I've been following for quite a bit of time.
Oh, sure,
He has
sure.
really interesting.
He's incredible. I mean, if you want Trevor on your show, just let me know, and I'll try to hook it up. Yeah, no problem.
That'd be amazing.
100%.
Hey, while you're in Bali, if you get a chance, stop by the Artful Ink tattoo studio. We had the owner, Paulo Martino, on last year, maybe a year and a half ago, and he has some really interesting motorcycle stories traveling across continents.
Sure.
Yeah, he might be a good guy to interview. I mean, he's not a photographer, but if that's the only thing, if that's a parameter that he needs to be met for you to interview them. But
much.
yeah,
Pretty
he's a really interesting guy though. And
Either way, yeah, you could always grab a beer with him.
yeah, he's a cool dude. I think
There are a lot of interesting lunatics in Bali. That's for
Yes.
sure.
yeah.
All right. Nikola, you ready for the rapid fire?
Yep.
All right, Bob, I'll start.
Okay.
Nikola, what is the first word that comes to mind when you hear the word travel?
Freedom.
I like it. What home comfort do you miss the most while traveling?
Not a goddamn thing. Nothing. Nothing.
All right. If you could swim in any liquid, what would it be?
Oh, silver. Definitely silver.
Silver.
In liquid form, that would be very warm.
Well, you didn't say possible. You said
Yeah.
Any.
Any. It's true. So that, I mean, it has to be.
Who would win in a fight, an accountant or a banker?
Oh man, I think accountant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why?
think accountant,
Why?
yeah.
You think they're just so fed up with the bankers?
Well, I mean, they're keeping track of the money, so like you just like there's a special kind of I think motivation there, so they know what's going on.
Would you rather drink wine or coffee for the rest of your life?
Wine, definitely.
Say hello in your favorite language.
Aloha.
Oh. If you can travel with anyone in the world, living or dead, who would it be?
Yeah. The just a second. Citizen Kane, director. Orson Welles. Orson Welles, 100%.
Wow. That's a good one. We haven't heard that response before.
Oh, the best stories ever. The best stories ever. I urge you to listen to all of his stories. They're the best.
Will do. That's my list. What is one item remaining on your bucket list?
Oh, there are many, man. I mean, but Africa and Alaska are there. Like that's pretty much visiting those places.
Those are very good choices. If you could pick an actor to play you in a movie, who would you choose?
I mean, it would be amazing if Christian Bale would do it.
Ooh, I can see that. I can see that.
I can see Christian Bale.
Or Tom Hardy. That would
Tom
be,
Hardy's a good one.
Two
Yeah.
great choices.
Yeah, very good.
that'd be incredible. I mean, not even close, but okay. I mean, it's a movie. So.
Yeah.
Well, if you were stuck in one city for the rest of your life, what city
Amsterdam.
would you choose?
Amsterdam. Wow, that was fast. That was really that was truly rapid.
100%.
If you owned a yacht, what would you name it?
I wouldn't own the yacht. My wife owns two, so I don't want to own it. They're already called Alexa and Alexa J.
All right.
Last
So
question.
you don't want to own the yacht, man. You
No.
want to rent.
You want someone else to own it and you enjoy it.
Oh God! Do not own the yacht. It's interesting, but no.
Sound advice.
Yeah, I mean,
If I ever encounter the opportunity, now I know.
first-hand experience. Trust me.
Yes.
Last question. What is one piece of advice that you give a decade young version of yourself? Decade younger version of yourself.
time does not matter, man. I mean, like, it's all long game. It's just long. It's a long game. If you want to build anything that is of substance, age doesn't. Nothing matters. It's just a long game. That's it.
I like
a long game.
Yeah. Put in for the long term.
Yep. Well, Nikola, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a pleasure speaking with you, hearing all of your stories, and discussing art, which we rarely get to do on this travel podcast.
This was a nice spin. Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation.
I wasn't expecting it, but yeah, I just hopefully I'll see how this looks like.
Well, I appreciate it, and we'll stay in touch.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Nikola's the type of guy you could walk into a bar with him at 8 p.m. He'll text you, "Hey man, come to the bar, have a beer with me." You walk in, it's 8 p.m. You think you're going out for maybe dinner and a beer. You stumble out at 3 a.m. having the time of your life, having shared incredible travel stories. He's a cool dude, and I really enjoy just kind of shooting the crap with him.
I did too, and it definitely took a turn that I did not think it would take. I mean, he just has so many life experiences for one individual, for one life. It's just, I mean, we could talk with him for another 3 hours and record a different conversation each time, and it would just be very fascinating.
Yeah, and we've established friendships with a few people through this podcast, and I have a feeling, hopefully, he's a reoccurring guest, because each conversation, I think, would be incredibly unique, and it would be pretty awesome to have him back on again in the near future.
Yeah, and I've never been to Bali, but I would feel comfortable going knowing that he could be there.
I've never been to Bali either, but how many times have we had it come up on this podcast? It's a no-brainer. There has to be a reason it's as popular as it is, and so
yeah, it's come up probably in, I don't know, 10 to 25% of all of our podcasts.
Mm-hmm. So we'll have to go there one day.
Yeah, we will.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to the podcast, of course. If you enjoy the show, you could do two things to really help us out. One, you could just like and subscribe and then rate the podcast. That's like a non-financial way to back us. The other one would be to sign up on Patreon and provide us with as little as $1 per month. $1 a month to help fund the show and our time. Either way, we appreciate it. We appreciate you. You're a huge reason of why we do this podcast, to share travel stories. So thank you for listening to the show, and tune in next week.